Walt, and welcome to Stingray Tom's Florida and another Take 5 for Florida history. Today I'm at the Walt Disney World Resort and I'm taking a look at trash cans and how Walt Disney helped develop the cleanest theme parks in the world. If you're a big Disney fan, you're probably saying, finally, a video about Disney trash cans. And if you're not, you're saying, a video about Disney trash cans? So I will say to you both, this is about Walt Disney and the truth about trash in his parks. But it's also a metaphor for how Walt looked at small details but didn't get too hung up on them. He was a visionary, highly imaginative and creative. Most people would agree that nearly 60 years after his death, he's still the most important individual in the history of the modern theme park. And while trash cans appear to be insignificant, the history has a number of interesting aspects that are representative of the development of the Disney parks in general. Now it'd be best if I started at the beginning. Long before there was a Disney World, Walt had decided to create an amusement park. This was surprising since he was the head of a movie studio and didn't have experience in designing parks. Still, as we know, Walt didn't let that stop him. He studied parks, hired skilled people, and most importantly, he and his brother Roy secured the money to create Disneyland in 1955. While there were lots of issues before the park was built, there was a bunch afterwards as well. Trash was one of these, though it was actually part of Walt's original reasoning to create Disneyland. When he shared the idea with his wife Lillian, she asked with astonishment, "Why would you want to build an amusement park? Amusement parks are dirty. They don't make any money." However, Walt answered her by saying, "That's the whole point. I want a clean one that will." Walt planned a family-friendly park, one where parents could bring the kids and even the grandparents to relax, have fun, and experience the famous entertainment of Disney movies. Sam Genoway, in his 2011 book, Walt and the Promise of Progress City, wrote this: "Before Disneyland, most amusement parks were rather seedy places. Trash was tossed anywhere, and little attention was paid to the landscaping or architecture. Walt said he wanted Disneyland to be different from the dirty, phony places run by tough-looking people." Of course, it wasn't just amusement parks that were dirty at the time. So many Americans felt that trash and litter were someone else's problem, so it ended up being everyone's problem. This famous, or nowadays infamous, ad that premiered on Earth Day in 1971 launched a Keep America Beautiful campaign with the theme, "People start pollution, people can stop it."
Some people have a deep, abiding respect for the natural beauty that was once this country. And some people don't. People start pollution. People can stop it.
This ad is problematic today. Keep America Beautiful's actions have been criticized as greenwashing with a focus on littering and not on industrial pollution and corporate responsibility. The ad quickly became known as the Crying Indian, though the actor is now known to be of Italian descent. Still, it's emblematic of the time. Sam Genoway's Walt and the Promise of Progress City goes on to share. When Walt gave a park tour, a journalist commented that litter would soon cover everything. Walt curtly replied, "It'll never happen." "Why not?" asked the reporter. because we're going to make it so clean, people are going to be embarrassed to throw anything on the ground. Walt was right. Disneyland had validated people's expectations for public cleanliness, and the park would redefine the standard. In 2025, Walt is still such a legendary individual that stories continue to be invented or at least misinterpreted. I've known part of the history of Walt and trash cans for many years, and over the past few I've looked into it in greater depth. The inspiration partly came from meeting two Japanese visitors a few years ago whose hobby was photographing trash cans wherever they travel, with Disney parks being some of their favorite places. They've got thousands of photos. To make this video, I spoke with a number of experts because when I looked around for information, I found quite a bit that didn't ring true. This includes the ever-popular and I think infamous 30-foot rule. I'll explain that later in the video. I'm showing photos from Disney World and Disneyland here. They come from souvenir books collected in the last 50 years. I love them since the trash cans aren't obvious. While the trash can is the most ubiquitous manufactured object in Disney World, they hide in plain sight. Looking at these images is a little like playing Where's Waldo. So this is a Disney trash can. No sharp edges, a flat top which has been used as a dinner table, baby changing station, and a seat, though Disney would rather you not do any of those. On the other side there's a door to empty it. There's the two swinging doors for trash that open with a simple push and close due to gravity. Here's Walt posing with one of the trash cans. This is a staged photo, though there's nothing wrong with that. Walt's in Town Square at Disneyland, in an empty park. Empty but for the photographer, of course. Plus, there's 3 pieces of trash right next to it. It seems unlikely they'd be so close, but yet so far. Now this is a more complete image, and it helps identify the location as near City Hall. Today there is a trash can in the same place. I wonder if anyone has replicated the photo. So on to the first myth. You'll find websites that say Walt designed these trash cans himself. Some will say that he got a patent for the design, while others state that he intentionally didn't. Others even suggest that he invented the trash can with self-closing doors. Here's what I've learned. While it's possible that Walt designed them, it seems unlikely. It's also possible that someone on the Disney staff came up with a basic design and had a company manufacture them. But then again, Walt was smart enough to know when to create new things and when to buy off the shelf. Disneyland sported plenty of things that were readily available and could be bought by anyone. Now take a look at this photo from Los Angeles around 1950. It shows a very similar trash can around the time Disneyland was being designed. Also, here's a contemporary photo of the same intersection. The buildings are still there, but the trash can has regressed to a metal basket without even a bag. Now, I haven't found any evidence that Disney or his company designed the trash cans. I haven't found a patent, nor is it discussed in any of the books or interviews I've seen. As for inventing the self-closing trash can, I've spoken to representatives with 2 trash can companies. The first is the Bennett Manufacturing Company. While they couldn't give me a specific date as to when they were first making this style of can, this trademark was first used in 1940, and the style of can appears to be more of a product of the 1930s or 40s than the 50s. Then there's the Solar Sturgis Company. These are 2 ads, one from 1921, that shows a self-closing can. The company no longer makes trash cans anymore, but they were selling them as early as 1917. So to recap, Walt didn't invent the self-closing can. There were also similar trash cans available at the start of Disneyland. I haven't been able to prove or disprove whether Walt designed the ones in the park. If anyone can provide such evidence, please share in the comments. There was likely some input about the design, and it was good enough that the style has changed little over 8 decades. Let's look more closely at the covered trash cans. Some websites say that Walt insisted on them to hide, as one site says, any visual and smellable distraction. Certainly, unsightly and stinky trash is bad, and yes, a covered can was chosen for the park, but people might be making a bigger deal of it than needs be. If you look at examples in other Florida theme parks, you'll see that uncovered cans work just fine. Reducing the size of the opening hides the trash, and if you were to spend some time watching the comings and goings of custodians, you'd see that trash is never left in the cans long enough to smell. I've spent thousands of hours in each of these parks, and if you watch and even ask the staff, what you find is that they often empty a can when it's only about half filled. The next thing to look at is the appearance of Disney's trash cans, since that was as much of a requirement as was the visual and olfactory requirements. This photo of Disneyland's entrance has been used by the Walt Disney Archives in stories about the park's opening day. Front and center are 2 trash cans, neither of which are the same as Walt's. Also, in August 1955, Vice President Nixon visited for the first time. He rode a number of attractions, including Mr. Toad's Wild Ride and Snow White and Her Adventures. In this photo, he's placing his daughter in a Dumbo, and on his left is another non-standard trash can. Notice its peaked roof. By the way, the bearded person in the suit is none other than Fess Parker, who played Daniel Boone and was Nixon's guide for the day. Those aren't the only non-standard cans, however. Here's Town Square at the entrance with 3 cans without lids. Also, there are a couple of rides where you can see traditional bullet-style cans. Both the Casey Jr. Railroad and the Astrojets had them, and this photo of the Astrojets can be dated 1967 or later, since the People Mover opened in that year. These 2 cans appear to be in ride operator locations and presumably were for cast members only. There's one other non-standard can to show you in a photo that may look a bit odd. This is a Disneyland copycat park in Nara, Japan, called Dreamland. Look it up on the interwebs if you're curious. It's been closed for many, many years now, but I wanted to show you their trash cans, one of the few things that they didn't copy from Disneyland. Now, as for the official cans, they have a couple qualities that aren't immediately noticeable, but are nice nonetheless. First of all, emptying them tends to be fairly quiet. In contrast, the ones at Universal Resort have a large metal donut-shaped lid which makes a racket when it's placed back on. Disney's just have this door. Another thing is that spills which happen on the top won't pour down and over the trash doors, helping them to stay clean. That's accomplished by this ridge. And speaking of the ridge, it's a good time to point out that there are several types of trash cans today. For example, this has a smooth frame while other frames have rivets. There's 2 other parts of Walt's trash can to point out here. The first is that to empty it, one appears to need a key, while today most of them have a handle. You'll find some at Disney World are unpainted stainless steel, while others are black. There are a few others you can find, like this one on the roof of a Disney Springs garage without a handle. These harken back to an intermediate type between the keyhole and the easy open handle. There was a time when cast members needed to reach inside and push open the door. The other aspect of Walt's trash can is that the doors on top are flat. This was the original style, but along the way there was a modification. These have been stamped by a hydraulic press. This was done to allow the use of a thinner sheet of steel as the shape makes them stronger. They've also had the word push stamped in them. I'm not sure when the indented ones first appeared, but they're in photos from Magic Kingdom's opening in 1971. The different trash cans, flat and indented, handles or no, can all be seen around Disney World as of 2025, which might tell you a bit about their longevity. Of course, it's not uncommon for trash cans to be long-lasting, so it only tells you so much. Still, the cans are fairly light compared to ones that you can see built out of concrete. Because of this, they can be moved easily and they're labeled with their location, so they'll find their way back home. Slight differences aside, each trash can is the same no matter where you are in Disney World. Except, that is, for the paint job. This is the main reason that the trash cans have become popular with Disney fans. Now, there isn't too much to say about the paint jobs, but they began in Disneyland, with each land having a different design. The Magic Kingdom, which was considered Disneyland East, followed suit. To this day, it has the most variety of designs, but there are different schemes for the hotels and the other parts of the world, including the water parks, Disney Springs, and the wide world of sports. This brings me to the 30-foot rule I mentioned at the start. This is the strangest of the trash can myths. Google Disney's 30-foot rule and you'll see dozens of websites that list it as fact. In fact, most say that it's an official Disney rule, but it's not. The websites often disagree about what the rule is, which is odd considering that if it's an actual rule, it could be quoted. For example, Disney World's grooming standards in the 1970s had this to say about a male cast member's hair. A neat, natural haircut and a clean shave are essential. The hair is to be neatly groomed so that it does not extend beyond or cover any part of your ears. There's no question of its authenticity since it's right there on the page. I've never seen the 30-foot rule quoted anywhere. So what is it? Its most basic form is that it was developed by Walt himself and states all trash cans should be no more than 30 feet away from each other. Simple enough, but there's some variations. I've seen it to be 30 steps rather than feet, and I've also seen it stated that a trash can should be no more than 30 feet from a guest at any time. As I said, I've never seen such a rule, and no one in custodial that I've asked is aware of it either. Now, it's hard to disprove something like this, but I think the simplest way is to look at just how Disney trash cans are placed. Using a measuring tape shows that there's a lot of inconsistency in trash can placement, almost like people place them in convenient locations rather than sticking to a rigid system. What I've seen is that they're anywhere between 30 and 100 feet apart. Here's my research of the placement in Adventureland. I counted 35 trash cans, not including ones in buildings, and while these look very close together, most are 50 to 60 feet apart. To go back to the myth, it's suggested that Walt created the 30-foot rule based on significant research he carried out in Disneyland. Supposedly, Walt regularly made notes of when guests needed trash cans and determined that they needed one every 30 feet. Apparently, any further than that gave the average guest permission to drop trash on the ground. Please, think about that critically. There's many ways to use statistics to understand human behavior. That's not one of them. The real story, as documented by friends of Walt and historians who are experts, is that it has to do with hot dogs. Speaking with Sam Genoway, he confirmed the way that Walt came up with trash can placement. Sam said he spaced them far enough apart to accommodate his unwrapping a hot dog, eating that hot dog, and disposing of it into the waste can. Walt liked hot dogs a lot. Eating while he walked, he wanted to make sure that there was a trash can close by after his last bite. This didn't develop into the 30-foot rule, however. What it did mean is that trash cans should be placed so that one is clearly visible in whatever direction that people are walking. Taking a look around Disney World, you can see that's still the practice. Pick any point on a path, and you should see a couple trash cans nearby. and you're likely to pass one in only a few seconds. Even today, when people don't really litter, that's still important, as it's providing a subtle part of the Disney experience. You can see it as well in most other theme parks today. Trash cans in places like Universal and Busch Gardens might be uninteresting, but they're plentiful. I don't know where the idea of the 30-foot rule came from, but in doing research, I noticed something interesting. Both main streets in Disneyland and the Magic Kingdom, and even Hollywood Boulevard and Hollywood Studios, are 30 feet wide. Likewise, each road has trash cans placed on either side, directly across from each other, 30 feet apart. The final thing to look at is just how popular Disney trash cans have become over the years. Some fans dress like them, while others buy Disney trash can merchandise. And yes, in case that surprises you, Disney will merchandise anything. Here we have salt and pepper shakers. Pins. Candy boxes. Holiday ornaments. Highlight markers. Shirts. And a three-dimensional model. Oh, and by the way, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Push the talking trash can. Push was a radio-controlled robot who hung out in Tomorrowland. It was created by Daniel Deutsch and entertained guests between 1995 and 2014. Push was brought to life by an employee of Real Simple Ideas who was dressed in plain clothes. There was a transmitter hidden in a gym bag, and there was a small microphone which the operator held up to their mouth. Push was an actual trash can mounted on wheels that allowed it to cruise around and speak with guests. It had a voice processor that modified the operator's voice, and one of the ways guests interacted with Push was to place trash inside the character. Walt wanted a park that would showcase his life's work, that he'd be happy showing to his wife Lillian and their daughters. He wanted it managed the way his movie studio was, organized, clean, and safe. In a culture where many Americans considered littering to be acceptable, Walt looked at the best ways to mitigate the mess of a park that would welcome tens of thousands of daily visitors. Yes, the trash can was a big part of that, but the romantic mystique that surrounds its history is probably more than it deserves, especially when the stories that most people tell aren't part of Walt's actual history. There's no question that Walt and his brother Roy and the remarkably creative people that worked with them created and invented some terrific things. But the story of Disney's trash cans are more about basic refinement than revolutionary design. By the way, I'd like to mention that Sam Genoway has written a new book. While he is justly famous for books such as The Disneyland Story, Universal vs. Disney, and Walt and the Promise of Progress City, more recently he's been traveling around the U.S. in a camper van exploring in national parks. Sacred Landscapes is a wonderful journal of that experience. I'll leave a link to it in the doodly-doo. This isn't a paid promotion, just a comment from a fan. Thank you for watching another of my videos. Please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel to learn more about Florida's tourism history. And please check out my Patreon page. The link is in the description. Stingray Tom's Florida, traveling through time around the Sunshine State.